Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi, Shavis, Perek Tes, Halacha Hey, and Halacha Vav. We're learning today Daf Ayin Zayin. We left off on Daf Ayin Vav Amid Beis, 6 lines before the bottom of the Amid, Teven Shal Shavis. So first of all, we are learning that one may not derive hefsid, destructive, let's say non-food benefit from edible Shvius produce. Even though you are deriving a benefit, it's considered destructive because since Shvius may only be used for consumption, so non-consumption is called destructive. And we'll see applications of this rule. We're going to have the question whether the Isur Midrabanan on Svichim applies or includes animal fodder, animal feed or not. And we're going to move on from there to something very interesting. Fenugreek, which is a plant that's comprised both of a seed and of stalk. The seed is eaten for people, Michael Adam. The stalk is generally Michael Behema. When it comes to the dinim of Truma, Ma'aser Sheni, they only take effect on Michael Adam. So fenugreek, that's Truma, what part of it is Truma? Only the seed. In contrast, Shvius, like we are learning, the Kedusha of Shvius also takes effect on that which is Michael Behema. So therefore, just as an example, if fenugreek of Truma falls into a vat, let's say, of wine, if the seed itself is not enough to impart flavor because you have the right ratio of the wine against the seed, even though seed and stalk impart flavor, the stalk of fenugreek tastes similar to the seed, the wine will not be problematic because the seed is that which is holy and the seed becomes bottle. Masha'inkim, when it comes to the dinim of Shvius and other dinim that are chal, not only on Michael Adam, but also on Michael Behema, the amount of bittul that's needed is not only against the seed, it's also against the stalk. Halacha Vav, the next Mishnah, will discuss something that we keep on repeating, and that is, what is the status of produce of Shvius after the time of Biur? We're going to learn this Mishnah the way that Ramban and the others learned the Mishnah, that Biur only demands for you to remove it from your home and to declare it hefker. But after that, it doesn't have to be destroyed. And here the Mishnah quotes the machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yosi. Rabbi Yehuda holds that aniyim oichlin avoloy ashirim. After it's declared hefker, after Biur, you don't have to burn it, but only aniyim can use it. And Rabbi Yosi says, echad aniyim ve'echad ashirim. There's going to be the next part in the Mishnah that will be so enigmatic that we'll leave that for tomorrow, God willing. We'll read the words, but it will be very unclear what the Mishnah means to say. And the third part of the Mishnah will make a point by telling us that even though Shvius produce, you can say, is considered hefker, which it is, and when one makes dough, let's say, from flour that was hefker, there is no obligation to separate challah. Nevertheless, we learn from Sukkim that a product of Shvius is obligated to have challah removed from it, and if not, it's considered tevel midoi raisa. That will be the third din of the Mishnah. The Gemara that we'll learn today, God willing, will introduce a third Tana Reb Shimon concerning the machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yosi, whether only aniyim oichlim, whether like Rabbi Yosi says echad aniyim ve'echad ashirim. We're going to see that the Reb Shimon holds generally like Rabbi Yehuda that aniyim oichlim. Nevertheless, there'll be an exception, in which even the original owner or other ashirim will also be allowed to partake of produce of Shvius after the time of Biur, after the owner did the right thing, which is to remove it and to be mafker it. That will be today's daf. Daf Ayin Vav Amid Beis, give us 6 lines before the bottom of the Amid. Teven Shal Shvius, that's normally used for animal fodder. Ein Sharon Batit, you can't soak it in plaster. Plaster, the ingredients of plaster would include straw, right? Straw and mud. Can't do that, even though you're deriving benefit, let's say, from the bricks that you're making, because since it's imbued with Kedusha Shvius and it's normally used L'Michael Behema, it has to be consumed by a Behema and not used for another non-food purpose, because using that is considered La'achla v'loy lahefseid. It's considered that you're being mafsided. However, if someone violated and yes, shiron batit, they soaked it in plaster, maybe one would think, since he did an isur, you should not be allowed to derive benefit. We don't say that. Why not? because once you mix the teven straw in plaster, the straw becomes completely bottled. That's a topic that we mentioned at the end of last week, that at some point when something becomes so decomposed, it's not considered anything anymore. So there are no more restrictions on it. Now it's bottled, and therefore you can use it. However, says the Gemara, when does the straw become completely nullified in this plaster? For who shegibloi, that's only if you needed it. If you don't need it, if you just throw a couple of pieces of straw in there and it's not mixed in together, then it retains its own identity. Since it retains its own identity, it has in it kedusha shvis. Even though you already made a brick or whatever you made from it, you can't use it because there's something of shvius that can only be used l'maychel behema, and using it for another purpose is called lahefseid, and you're being mafsided. And we don't say it's already destroyed. No, if it's considered in existence, you cannot derive benefit. A similar second teaching, teven shol shvius, here, don't place it into a pillow. So they would put straw into into material to make it into a pillow. That was the straw became the pillow stuffing. And interestingly, the Pnei Moshe points out that when you use it as a pillow, at some point it becomes inedible even for animals. I'm reading the words in the Pnei Moshe, 4 lines under the Gemara, in the medium-sized lines. That the mitoich kach niskalkelhu ve'enoi ro'u l'maychel behema. Here again, nusani bekad, if you placed it in the pillow, even though you were not allowed to do it, it became bottle. The same concept. When does it become bottle? Only after someone slept on it. V'hu sheyashan olav. After someone sleeps on it, then it gets ruined. The stomach, it gets crushed. It gets so crushed from the weight, or maybe from the odor, that the animals won't want to have it. I don't know how it works. Bottom line is the same nekuda, that even though you're making use of it, if it's a non-food use, it's asur. It's called hefsid. Not only that, it's not a one-time violation that ends. It doesn't end, but if the straw becomes bottle, it's called non-existent. The shvius is not here. Then you are allowed to use it. Okay. And here, the question that we pointed out, teven shal shvius, guys, straw is Michael Behema. Is there a problem? We learned that midrabanan you can't have svichim. Is there an issue with using it midrabanan? Now, why would we think not? I'll tell you why we would think not. As we mentioned when we learned the topic of svichim, that why did the Chachamim say svichim is asur? We are not going with the Shitas Rabbi Akiva. We already quoted the Toras Kahanim. Rabbi Akiva holds svichim is asur midoraisa. Everyone else, the other Tanoim, understands svichim is only asur midrabanan. And the reason why the Chachamim made an isur is because they were afraid that a person is going to plant that plant. They're going to do it on shvius, be'isur, and they're going to claim that it grew by itself. Now, something that has very little value, perhaps like animal fodder, one is going to violate. Maybe one, it's not worth it to do an isur. It has to, one would not do it for something that has such little value. That would be the reason to argue that there is no isur midrabanan on svichim. And the Gemara says that Rabbi Levi Sanbaria, name of a place, asked this question to Rabbi Ba, which is Rabbi Abba Bar Zavda, and Rabbi Ba Bar Zavda told him, muter, sharei. In other words, there is no isur midrabanan on svichim on Michael Behema. Amar Rab Zeira, you should know, generally, Rab Zeira, I don't rely on the Piskei Dinim of Rabbi Bar Zavda. So I still had the question. So Ishta'alis li'ilein the base karsana. So I asked the question to the base medrash, to the chevra that we're learning in the base medrash and base karsana, turning to the ayin zayin on the top of Amr, and then he told me that nohagin haveina kinoshin tevin min aruva shmitza, that our custom is that we would bring straw that was gathered before shvius. The chad mechasrin, and when that ran out, and now we needed straw of shvius, maise min shurayam, we would only take straw that was already mixed into plaster into walls. In other words, as we just learned, that those straws are considered bottled in the wall, in the bricks or however they would build, implying that if it was not bottle, you're not allowed to have benefit, you're not allowed to take Michael Behema, in our case straw, that is of Shviz. And why not? Because the Isur of Shvichim does apply to Michael Behema. So clearly you have a machlokes between these Amoyroyim. Says the Gemara, let's go back to the times of the Tanoim. On one hand, we're going to find a Braisa that's going to back up the Rabbi Bar Zavda that says it's mutter. And Amar Rav Yirmiyah, I have a masnisa, I have a Braisa, Amar Shu mutter. The Tani we learned in a Braisa, Hatzaboyim, dyers, Vahapatonim, and the people that fatten animals. They are allowed to purchase bran. I know bran and straw are two different things, but they are similar, that they are Michael Behema. Bran is the coarse part of the straw, secondary, of the wheat. The wheat, the kernels are used for human consumption, wheat. And the bran, even though today many people mix the bran into the bread, but the way Chazal look at bran is bona fide Michael Behema. Okay, so you are now. Bran used to be fed, was need by dyers. Bran was need by people who fatten animals. Says the Braisa that one is allowed to buy it mikolmakim. Mikolmakim means you don't need to know for sure that the seller is someone who's careful with all of the dinim of shvis. We don't need that. You can buy it from anyone. The ein chosheshin, and we're not concerned. Now let's go inside the Rashirilio. The Rashirilio 6 lines down, 5 lines down from the right column. The ein chosheshin. What will be the chashash? Shema mechite svichimo. What would be the chashash? Maybe it grew on the shvis. Why? Because the kiv and the psoilosu. Why are we not choshesh? Because even if it came from Shvis, even if it grew on the 7th year, that's our understanding of this Braisa. Since the bran part of the wheat is called psoilis, which means it was not meant to be eaten by man. Kulahai legozru. So the Chachamim, who are the ones, according to almost all opinions, who are the ones that asered tzvichim, they did not apply it to Michael Behema. And if it doesn't apply to bran, it doesn't apply to straw. So that will be great. Says the Gemara that Rabbi Yirmiyah Savar Meimer, when he heard this Braisa, he understood that the meaning of ein chosheshin is afilu min achashud, that even if someone is chashud ala shvis, guys, chashud ala shvis means someone who we know sells merchandises, product of shvis. We had that sugya a couple of daf ago. We already know that it's not always prohibited, but even if someone is chashud ala shvis, even from that person you can buy. No, that not. When the Braisa says the words, the ein chosheshin, all it means is that you are allowed to buy it from someone even when you don't yet know their level of observance. That means they are not people that keep shviz. But if you know someone for sure doesn't care about the dinim of shviz, then midrabanan, that's a rule we had a few times already, the Chachamim decreed to penalize shviz violators, that no one should do business with them on shviz. That's already also. Bottom line is, we see from this Braisa that something that is Michael Behema is not included in the rabbinic prohibition on svichim. Says the Gemara, Omar Rabbi Shammai, that's an Amoira, right? The Tana was just Shammai. The greater you are, the less titles you need. That's until today, you see. The people that are not so great, they need a lot of titles. Omar Rabbi Shammai, compared to. So he says like this, that I have a Mishnah, the opposite, and this Mishnah is a Mishnah in Tumura. I have a Mishnah that says, Terumois, Slicha. The Mishnah says that it's actually Asur, which is fine. Tana, so we had a Machlokes Amoyroim because we have a Machlokes Tanoi. The Tanin and Taman, we learned over there in Terumois, like we mentioned, that if you have this Tilson, this fenugreek, that Truma is only Kal on that which is Michael Adam. Fenugreek, this plant that Kevin was showing a picture of Misama before, seed is meant for human consumption. It's herb. It has a big, strong odor, and the leaf is Michael Behema. happens to be that the seed and the leaf share the same odor, the same tam. If someone threw it into wine, now, if that is truma, that's a classic case, right? Min b'she'enoi minoi, right? Truma got mixed into chulin. You have to have a ratio of 100 to 1. If you have that ratio, then the truma's bottle. If not, you have the mai, which is a problem. You have a mixture, it becomes meduma. Here it happened to be, the Mishnah says Gavaldik, that even if you don't have the ratio of chulin wine against the seed, against the whole plant, I don't care. You don't need to have the ratio against the whole plant because the stalk part, the green part, is not truma to begin with. And by the way, the same thing is with Ma'aser Sheni, right? If fenugreek of Ma'aser Sheni falls into wine, if it will not be nullified, then you can only consume the wine in Yerushalmi and HaKodesh. But it could be nullified. Same issue. So in contrast to truma and Ma'aser Sheni, where the Mishnah makes the point to say that you only have to have the ratio against the seed. When it comes to shvi'is, now we are assuming shvi'is means sfichim. That's the assumption. Why? Or kilei hakerem, which is asur bahana, or hegdish. Now, in all of these three, it's issue whether it is the prohibition of shvi'is or the kedusha of shvi'is, the prohibition of kilei hakerem, the limitation of hegdish. It's hegdish doesn't only go on the seed. There. Im yesh bazera uba eitz kedei litan tam, if the seed and the stalk combine, impart flavor, because the ratio of 100 to 1 is only enough if you were only to measure the zera. But here the issue isn't only the zera; it's both the zera and the eitz. So here it will imbue its problem in everything else. Bottom line, as you see, is that the fact that the Mishnah mentions shvi'is, and what are we including? The stalk of fenugreek. The stalk of fenugreek is Michael Behema. V'haraya, truma is not chal on it. And nevertheless, it's a problem. What would be the problem? In other words, the understanding of shvi'is is that the issue is svichim. So here clearly you see that svichim includes stalks. So the Gemara says, no, that's not necessarily correct. Lo Omar, we're going to go with this gear. So Omar Rabbi Mana, let me tell you, the issue of this Mishnah, who says it's about Svichim, perhaps Tiftar b'kedusha shvi'is b'bir, that if the Zman of beer came and went, and the person did not do beer, maybe beer is chal, not maybe. Beer is certainly chal even on that which is Michael Behema, no doubt. But maybe when it comes to the issue only of Svichim, maybe Svichim is Bechlal not included in the Isur Midrabanan. So Bekitzer, this Mishnah, the lace Shama Minaklum, nothing can be proven to this Mishnah concerning our question of whether Svichim is or is not included in the Isur Midrabanan on Michael Behem. Okay. Says the Gemara. How are you Bechlal allowed to put? Why would one be allowed to put fenugreek in wine? People would do it because they wanted to imbue the wine with some sort of flavor beyond the wine itself. How did we begin today's share? By saying that something that already has in it kedusha shvi'is, which taka includes also Michael Behema. When the Torah says la'achla v'loy lahefseid, it doesn't mean it literally don't destroy it. It means don't use it for a non-food purpose. The Havamina of the Gemara is that if something is designated L'Maichel Behema, using it L'Maichel Adam is also called a Hefsid, because you're not using it for its designated purpose. So the question is, how would one Bechlal be allowed to put the stalks of fenugreek in wine, wanting for the flavor to go into the wine? Well, you're taking it away from its designated purpose. Question mark. Says the Gemara, good gavaldik. From here you see that I'm not allowed to use Michael Behema to make bricks out of it. That's called hefsid. Can't make a pillow out of it. That's called hefsid. Even though the pillow is being used by a human being. But if a human being is going to eat it, Michael Behema is allowed to be consumed by Adam. Tiftar ba'oichle behema la Adam. And if you take oichle behema and you feed it to an Adam who's going to oichel it, that's not called hefseid. Gewaldig. I wonder how many people here eat their dog food. In LA, people eat it. The stomach. Never heard of that, Dan. All right, Dan is very defensive over here of the dog. Okay, good. Halacha vav. Moving on to the next Mishnah. Okay, we quoted this Mishnah many times, so here we go. You had a product of shvis. Atkan, everything was beheaded. You gathered it, ba'oifen hamutar, right? You didn't gather it, ba'oifen ha'asr. And v'higia shas habir, the time of beer arrives. Other than in vegetables, that we have one sheet of Rab Shimon that holds that there is one zman beer for all of the vegetables, then the general rule is that every item has its own time of beer. And let me tell you something else, guys, that we just put all the dots together. Beer happens when it's no longer found in the field. It's no longer found in the field as a rule because winter came, and that which was left in the field either got destroyed because of the rains, or it got frozen and it became inedible. I know there are exceptions, but that's generally just to remember that the time of beer, ironically, is not on the 7th year. It's amazing. The zman habir of almost all the products of shvius will happen sometime in the winter of the 8th year. Many daf ago we learned the Braisa. We didn't learn it yet inside the Gemara. We didn't learn the topic inside. It's going to be soon before we finish this chapter. About this item, this manabir is Chanukah, the other one is Purim, the other one is all in the 8th year. Doesn't matter. You have a product. The time of beer came. And the way the Rambam learns this Mishnah is completely not the way we're learning it. So let's say that there was a day, okay? On the day of beer, before Shkia, Mamish, it's like before Pesach, before the 5th hour, on the day of beer, before Shkia, on that day, Mechalkon Mazain Sholish Sudis L'chol Echad Ve'echad. You, the owner, who will have to, a moment before Shkia, let's go with the Ramban, remove it from your home and declare it Hefker, even though we had just a few daf ago, maybe you don't have to remove it, maybe you just have to make a declaration in front of 3 people. Be that as it may, prior to you doing beer, you can give it to as many people as you want. Guys, you can give it to your family members, you can give it to your neighbors, you can give it to your friends. I want to add something. The people that received Mazin Shalish Sudois, they don't have to do beer. I'm going into the nitty-gritty. Zman beer is shkia of that day. It's not like, it's no longer in the field in this second. Okay, today is Dalet Tammuz. Let's say Dalet Tammuz. Dalet Tammuz is Zman beer, if that would be. Today it's already, you can have it until night. So I can go 4 p.m. and I can give you Mazin Shalish Su'udais, and you don't have to do beer, even though you're going to keep it for a day and a half. Don't forget that they used to eat 2 meals a day. The only day we have 3 meals is Shabbos Kodesh. That doesn't matter. Whatever you gave away is not included anymore. It's not bound by the laws of beer. And now the remainder, if there is a remainder, on that you have to do beer. Gewaldig. Now you did beer, again, we're learning like the Ramban, beer means you declared it ownerless. Let's go better. You remove the remainder from your home and you declared it ownerless. Now what? So Rabbi Yehuda holds that it's not like beer chametz, but not the owner cannot reacquire it. Only poor people. Avoloy yashirim, which includes the owner. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. However, Rabbi Yossi Omer, no, nicht azoi. Echad aniyim ve'echad ashirim oich lemachar habiyur. Just imagine how the Rambam learns the Mishnah differently. We just learned last week that Asherilio that brought this whole idea that there are 2 times of beer. None of this is written explicitly in the Mishnah. We're going to learn it the way that Ramban learns it, which is a simple way of understanding the Mishnah without needing to start creating buildings over here. I don't know.
Well, that's just in part of the art school.
Correct. The Rambam we learned together. The Rambam, when we learned the Sugya, we read the Rambam inside.
But the Rambam with my man is not that.
The Ramban. The Ramban holds that you can take it back. The Rambam, the Maimonides holds that it has to be destroyed. after the time of beer. So he has a whole different understanding of the Mishnah. Okay. Now, like I mentioned before, the next few lines of the Mishnah right now, I'll translate them. There is a machlokes in the Gemara that will begin tomorrow. That means we're not going to go all the way into the end of this Amud. That will change the whole meaning of the Mishnah. Let me look at the words. You'll see how enigmatic Rabbeinu HaKadosh left this Mishnah. If someone has Peder Shvius, the first thing, Danny, that has to be resolved in the Gemara is, are these Peder Shvius, is the Mishnah speaking about Peders that are permitted or prohibited? That's not clear. And therefore, accordingly, all of the next words of the Mishnah, that meaning will not be clear either. Just words. So if you have Peder Shvius, whether it's a muted, whether it's asur, it's either or. We just don't know yet which one it is. Not that you violated and you gathered it, let's say, be'isa, but you have it. Either you got it be'erusha, or no, it's you did not violate, but you have produce, if it's davar ha'asur. And if it's davar ha'muter, then you got it. Rabbi Eliezer Oimer, or in the Yerushalmi, Rabbi Eliezer Oimer, that yinasnu le'oichleim, that it should be given to those who will eat it. Again, what these words mean, the Gemara will have to explain. You give it to those who eat it. The Chachamim no, that a sinner is going to profit. No. You can only sell it to the people that will eat it. And according to the Chachamim, that you have to sell it. Every line of the Mishnah we're going to leave for tomorrow, because it can be all different things, many different options. That's stanza number 2, clause number 2. We're leaving for tomorrow. Stanza number 3 says the Mishnah that ha'oichel me'isa shviz atshirehur muchalasa chayev misa. There is a rule that if someone eats tevel, the chayev misa b'dei shamayim. And what's included in tevel isn't only produce that was not tithed, trumas u'maisres. Even if you took off all of the trumas and the maisres properly, challah is also called truma. If when the time of challah came, that was last week's parsha, 2 weeks ago, parsha shalach, if you didn't separate challah, the dough is also called tevel. One would have thought that since produce of shviz is hefker, because don't forget, I'm not allowed to guard my field. Even when I collect it, I'm not collecting it like the balabas. Even if I'm the owner, I'm allowed to collect it like you can collect it. So one would have thought, and indeed, without psukim, you would have said that the status of produce of shvius is hefker. And the rule is that hefker doesn't have to be tithed. By the way, produce of shvius, you don't remove trumas u'maisas from produce of shvius. So you would think you don't have to remove challah. And the removal of challah isn't only an obligation midrabanan. Rabbi is trying to tell you, no, it's an obligation midoiraisa. By wording it, that if you ate a bread that was made out of wheat of shvius, then you're chayv misa b'dei shamayim. Pashut. I want to add another thing over here. We just spoke about tzvicha. Okay, I have a simple question. I get it. That midoiraisa, there's an issue of challah. Can you make bread out of wheat that is shvius? How would that not be svichim? It wouldn't bother me. One would think that Rebbe is just telling you, you should know that it's asur doiraisa, shkoyach. But one would say it's not a practical halacha, because midrabanan, wheat of shvius means wheat that grew on the 7th year should be asur mishum svichim. It's not something wild. Wheat is not, when we learned about those vegetables that they grow without cultivation, they're not included in svichim. It's not Michael Behema. Why is this not a problem? That's not correct. I'll give you one of the many possibilities that we have to just put together. One of the dinim that we learned not that long ago is that if I have shvius produce and I exchange it, let's say for money, so the mayim becomes shvius. Or if you barter it for an article, not only does the original retain kedusha shvius, but the final, right? Achrein nispas. That was the words of the Mishnah. I'll tell you something. I have wheat of the 6th year. I have wheat of the 1st year. I don't care. I have grain, Danny, that was tithed. Someone had a product of shvius that is not included in svichim, like all fruit. It's the mashal. So I have an apple thing in my backyard, and it's shvius. So I gathered the amount permissible, a little bit of apples. You have grain from the 5th year, doesn't matter, and I exchange it with you. Just giving you a mashal that not all grain is going to be asr midrabanan. You can have wheat that has the status of shvius, and it's mutter. And that's the case of the Mishnah, just as an example. Again, but that's just a side. The chiddush of the Mishnah is, and this is learned from Psukim, that yes, shvius generally is viewed as hefker. On the other hand, you are obligated midoraisa to take challah when you make a dough. That's the simple third clause of the Mishnah. And what we will be learning today, amazing, is we're going back to the first topic of the Mishnah. After the Zman of Biur, I mean, the Mishnah said a few things. First of all, the Mishnah said that on the day of Biur, you can give out how much, not everything, to each individual, only mazin shalosh su'udos. But again, the chiddush is that the recipient who got that has something that's not bound by the laws of Biur. So if you gave me mazin shalosh su'udos on something that's a non-perishable, I can keep it for another month if I want. Even though the owner would not be allowed to do it because that's the day of Biur. Now, that which he did not give away, that has to be removed. And here, machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yosef. Before we introduce the third sheet of Rab Shimon, we're looking for sources for each of these Tanoim. And if you want to read the pasuk, look in the Torah Oir HaShalom on the side just to appreciate the way Chazal learn a pasuk. So the pasuk writes, and this, by the way, is a pasuk in Mishpatim, that v'hashvi'is tishmetena unetashta, and v'ochlu evyoinei yamecha. The pshat is clearly right. V'ochlu evyoinei yamecha. I mean, if you read the pasuk, you're going to say Rabbi Yehuda is right. Well, it's after the time of Biur, who is allowed to eat it? The evyoinim. And not only that, v'yisram, and that which remains, toichel chayas asad. So comes along Chazal, and instead of putting a comma, which is the pshat, after the word amecha, before the word yisram, which normally would be v'achlu evyoinei amecha, comma v'yisram toichel chayes asodem, they put the comma after the word v'yisram. So v'achlu evyoinei amecha v'yisram. Let's read it inside. My time Rabbi Yehuda, because that's the way we read it. V'achlu evyoinei amecha v'yisram. That only the poor people can eat it. Only the poor people can eat it. And the remaining, it. Now, why does he say the word v'yisram? Because the pasuk does not explicitly say that we are referring to la'achar zman habir. What we're doing with this, let's say, Hasidic way of teaching a pasuk is that we are using the word v'yisram to explain what are we referring to. You know what we are referring to? That which is v'yisram, that which remains. You know what is that which remains? All of the produce after the time of Biur. And why do we call it that which remains? Of course, because like the Mishnah said, on the day of the Biur, you want to give it away to the people that you know. You give mazin shalosh seudas to your chavedim, to your neighbors, to your family members. What are you doing biur on? On that which remained. So the V'yisram is explaining that is showing you that we're talking about produce la'achar zman habir. And on this V'yisram, v'achlu only evyoinei amecha. That's Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi agrees with this drasha that you put the word V'yisram together with the words v'achlu evyoinei amecha. But let me tell you a whole different taich in it. The produce after the Zman HaBiur, who gets to eat it? Two categories of people. Number one, v'achlu evyoinei amecha, and v'yisram. You know what v'yisram means? And all other people. That's called echad aniyim ve'echad ashirim. Okay.
V'yisram going on the food or
on the people. Very good. You have to see the irony of all of this. Let me word it this way. You clearly see that they had an opinion prior to reading the pasuk. They understood that's the way it has to be, and then they read it into the pasuk. Rabbi Leib Shapiro always used to say, Yaakov Avinu went with a yarmulke. What's the raya? It says, Vayetze Yaakov. Yaakov went. Well, you think he went without a yarmulke? He went with it. In other words, that there's a certain given, and once you have the given, so when you read the pasuk, you see it in the pasuk. Like Chassidus says that the Sheidish Neshama of Hillel was in Chesed, the Sheidish Yerushalmi was in Gvura. So that already, and that's okay. Since this is who they were, so they saw the world, which is the Torah, through that lens. Okay. Now the third opinion. And as we'll clearly see over here in the Rashi Ilya that we have time to read properly, that Rab Shimon sides with Rabbi Yehuda. He agrees that after the time of Biur, generally, that which remains may only be eaten by Aniya Amecha, but there is an exception. So let's read the words.
Actually, eat it before anniversary eat it. What are we talking about? Like
Everyone.
His mom beer comes. They have my wheat.
We had this last Friday. Put it outside. First of all, it sounds like from the Mishnah that people didn't want to risk it because everyone knew by Shkia, people are putting it outside. It's like chopping Sharayim. Like even if the Rebbe wants for Chaim Shimon to take it, the Reuven will take it. Once you put it out there, you make a declaration, you don't know who it's going to. First you gave it out. And then you made it Hefker. You declared it Hefker. And then Rabbi Yossi says, you can take it back. He doesn't say even the Balabas. It's self-understood. It's open for Hefker. Really, the question is, can you be mafkir only for one category of people? That's
if you're an ani, ani's the owner, let's say.
No, we're not going to go with the ani as the owner because you're on the land. We're going to go that the usher is the owner. The ani is not the owner.
I'm just saying if the ani was,
I don't think that's an accurate statement.
Would still apply or not? That's what I'm trying to. Saying ani versus.
Okay, so if, in other words, Rabbi Yossi holds, if the owner would be an ani, he can take it back, but he has to be an ani.
Right. It's all about.
But you'd be mafkir. It's all really about also if biur means hefker. Is there such a thing of being mafkir something to only one segment of the population? We learned about this many times in the Bavli, quoting this. That's really the underlying machloikas. Is it even possible to be, if that's called hefker? That's not called hefker. If hefker means I relinquish my ownership. If I'm not the owner, I don't have the right to say who is allowed to take it.
No.
You lost your balabatishkeit.
Fine, but it's not coming from you. You say the status of this type of food is not allowed to be acquired by you.
The fact that I have to be mafkirit, if it's not afkarta the malko, we touched upon this last year. If I have to be mafkirit, then it is up to me. God tells me be mafkirit. And if the definition of hefker means hefker for everyone, then why would I not be included? And why wouldn't other Ashirim be included? Yes.
If the owner is an ani, why does he just not take it instead of making it a hefker? He's already there.
Because it has to be, hefker means it's free for all. Even if it's free for only the aniyim, it has to be free for all of the aniyim.
But it's just a loophole. He's going to take it anyway.
It's not a loophole. You have to, no, you have to remove it and declare it ownerless.
And then you can just bring it back.
Don't think that's we learned this Friday, Kevin. Don't think it's so simple that the guy got it back. I'm telling you right now that people in the neighborhood, they knew the day of biur for this product, and they waited. They knew they had spies. They knew that you have some good Persian dates in your home, and they're waiting. You're going to put it out, and before you have a chance to chop it back, other guys took it. Now, let's go. Tani, we learned in a brayse, Rab Shimon Oimer, Ashirim oichlim min ha'oitzer acher biur, that I will, even though I hold like Rabbi Yehuda, even Ashirim are allowed to take back from the public oitzer. Now, what are we talking about? Look inside that Asher. Guys, the second line from the top of the left. Oichlim min ha'oitzer, ba'oitzer sheba'ir ma'ira. Oh, now we're learning a whole new things over here. That every city would have a storage of food. If we are referring to that which you stored in your house, which is the topic of the Mishnah, if that would be the meaning, then Rab Shimon will hold like Rabbi Yossi, right? And if that would be the case, why did Rab Shimon say you can eat from the oitzer? Don't say the word oitzer. Why don't you? Just say the words of Rabbi Yossi. Echad aniyim ve'echad ashirim. Doesn't matter where it came from. Elo, it must be, like I explained before, that Rashi earlier brought us before, and as Rabbeinu Shimshon Zal, right, the Rashi and the Mishnayos, that here we're speaking about another thing. The Ba'oitzer Shebe'ir Koi. So let me say like this: Rab Shimon Savar, Nami. First of all, Rab Shimon holds. Nami means also like Rabbi Yehuda. When I declare something ownerless, I cannot reacquire it. Daha hefker kahai gavne loy mahane leinyan meiser. As we learned in Masechtas Peah by Shammai Yoimrim, that what, Danny, this is the whole, that's the ground zero. Is it shaykh to be mafker something for only one segment of the population? That's it. We don't go with that. No. Elo afilo ashirim tzrichem lechel min ha'oitzer shebe'ir shu b'yad beis din. In other words, let me tell you what would happen. That every city, they had a food bank, tzedakah, Tomchei Shabbos. And what would they do with that? They would give out every Friday. They would give food to the people that need. Now I understand something that let's say dates. I gave an example. When the time of beer came for dates, no one had dates. That which the city distributes after the time of beer, for each family according to what they need, Rab Shimon says that's something that the usher is allowed to partake of. That's a whole different thing. Because it's not like he put these dates out and he's taking it back in. That which he had, he's mafkarid.
Is that grounded from the Yisrael or no?
No. My Tama, we didn't get that. Danny, yes, we're going to get also from the Yisrael. The Rash is just explaining what Rab Shimon is saying. No, there's a chiddush here that even according to Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that which you put outside your house can only be taken by aniyim, but when there is a city that has an oitzer of food, and don't forget, after the time of beard, let's go with Rabbi Yehuda. If I'm not allowed to reacquire dates, so then you know what turns out? We're not talking about how much money do you have in your bank account. That means that the owners of dates, the growers of dates, they don't have this product. If that product is found in the Tomchei Shabbos, and when they're distributing it for families, their Ashirim can take it. Now, my Talmud Rav Shimon, why should there be any exception? Even though it wasn't theirs originally, weiter the same pasuk. It says, "V'ochlu ev yoynei amecha." Which implies that only the aniyim can eat. Instead of saying v'yisram, interpret it ad yisram. When can only the poor people take it? Only before there is only a remainder. But if what you are taking is from the remainder, what would that be? The Rab Shimon understands the remainder refers to these Tomchei Shabbos city banks, to these oitzres, from the Yisram, from the oitzer, then it's not only of Yoinim. There it's Echad Aniyim ve'Echad Ashirim. Okay, these are the three shitas, and God willing, tomorrow will be